Oldseed's ringing endorsements.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Oldseed's ringing endorsements. Thank you for tuning in. This is episode number 5, and I'm kind of excited about today. I mean, I'm excited about all of them, but today I'm extra excited because I'm talking with my friend Andy Kerr. With Andy, it's interesting because I was a fan of Andy's before I was his friend. I didn't know who he was for I knew who he was, but I didn't know him for about 20, 30 years, because I was a big fan of NOMEANSNO back in the 80s, and he was the guitar player of that band. So he played on a lot of my favorite old punk rock records. But then we became friends and we hung out, and I meet him every time I'm through Amsterdam and we play together, and he's a great guy, and it was a really fun conversation. So I hope you enjoy yourselves. And if you are interested and if you like this, please like it, or join the group, or become a Patreon, or share it with your friends, or tune into the next one. Whatever you do, sit back, relax, and enjoy this one because it's a gooder. We'll talk to you later. Take care. Hey, Andy, how's it going, man?
Craig!
There it is. We did it.
What a surprise!
I didn't know you were going to be there. How neat.
No. Hello.
Great to see you. Thanks for doing this.
Great to see you. Yeah.
Yeah. What's going on, man? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Healthy, and it's now raining after being super warm for ages, which I suppose is a good thing. But I really like hot weather. So
yeah, it was a stupid heat wave all across Europe. I think we had we got almost to 40 degrees in Berlin last week.
Wow.
So, yeah, but it's whatever. I mean, the good news is, like, when you get to be our age. You don't pardon the pun, you don't sweat it so much. Like it's hot.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? You just don't do anything. Just stop doing shit, and then it's not such a big deal. Like,
now listen to people in Southern Europe. You have an afternoon nap, and you can think of it as a kind of a preparation for when you're like old, and you just take a nap anyway. So,
dude, I have an afternoon nap every day already. I've been having an afternoon nap pretty much for the last 15 years already. So
I think it's a brilliant idea. It's a lovely idea.
it.
And dinner later, and then
no, I need an early dinner because I got an old man stomach, so I got to eat early. But other than that, I'm with you 100%.
Did your family always eat at a particular time every day?
Holy, did we ever? We ate at 5:30 sharp, my friend.
I think we ate at 5:20.
Really sharp.
My dad came home pretty much. My dad came home from work at 5, and then he sort of had to have the sort of moment to sort of compose himself, and then it was like, yeah, that was it.
Let's eat. I remember it being.
I get the knock on the door, and I was playing music in my room. It was like, dinner, okay.
Yeah, turn off the punk rock or whatever it was you were listening to. Probably not at that age, even if you were younger. No. Okay, I like to start these conversations. So far, it's been the only pattern I've had is to start the thing by saying, "How do you know me?"
How do I know you?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know this story.
Sure, of course I do.
So I went to see Mike Watt. He was here with the Missing Men?
With the Missing Men and Ushma Dome.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And so they were playing at the Occy, which is we can maybe even get into later on because of what a great venue it is in Amsterdam. And so I went, and I went early, like being an old person, I always do. And I always go to the Occy, and then I think, oh, what if it sells out? And then I go there, and there's like 4 people in the room. And it's like, okay. Anyways, so early on when there was, I don't know, 12 people in the room, there was this guy on stage playing acoustic guitar and songs. And he was obviously not from Europe. And a certain point, he was playing all these great songs. And I thought, oh, this is really good. This is really, really cool. This is not just, sorry, everyone, not just dumb folk music.
I'm blushing.
And
move on.
So anyways, at a certain point, this guy on stage goes, Winnipeg. I go, Winnipeg. And I shout out some name, just like I don't know, like a Tourette's syndrome and something, the bar of Mike or Mike's bar or something. And you look at me and you're like, what? what are you talking about? And then you carry on your set.
Yeah, it was
And
a weird,
then
it was a
after,
weird heckle.
it was
weird heckle.
odd.
Yeah, it was a weird
And
heckle.
then
One of the weirder heckles I've had in my life.
and it was just like part of my memory of the band I used to be in, traveling around, and we went to played in Winnipeg, and one of the guys there, I forget his actual name,
Mike.
who organized the folk, Mike, but I don't know his last name, had organized the folk festival there.
No,
was
that wouldn't have
involved
been,
in it.
It may be involved in it, but wasn't the organizer. I
Okay.
think you were talking about Mike Lambert.
Yes.
Mike Lambert was a famous sort of punk rock producer. So this is now to my side of the story. At this point,
right,
we're talking after the show, and you mentioned this, and I say Mike Lambert, and you said, yeah, I think so. And I said, yeah, he did a bunch of punk rock shows and stuff back then. And then I said, oh yeah, and by the way, what was the name of your band? To which you replied, No Means No.
No.
To which my bowels relaxed completely.
You gave me a really big hug. You just hugged me. We never met before. You just put.
I freaked out. Andy, you don't understand the within my circle or whatever, within the prairie punk rocker world, there's this mythos around you, essentially. Like, I mean, okay, I don't want to go too far into this because
a
long time ago, but up until now, this little series that I'm doing has been about people that I know that I think are really cool, that I want to sort of endorse and introduce to the world or whatever. You're the first person on this that is somebody who I knew before I knew. You know what I mean? I'm pretty critical of this whole, I'm sure you are as well, of this whole like cult of personality, fame.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And bullshit idea, which is part of what I'm kind of like protesting against with this thing, is saying, okay, you don't have to be famous to be interesting. In fact, that's 99% of the time you're not famous and still interesting. And fame is a gross plague that's causing much more problems than we really even realize or recognize. But you were fucking famous to me. Like you were. I think, I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna go deep into this, but I think, No Means No, the No Means No that you were involved in, the early No Means No, is probably the most vital, like, hardcore punk output, bar none. Like, I personally, and I challenge all of you out there to fight me, but I don't think, I don't think there's a more vital output from the Sex Mad You Kill Me through to 0 + 2 = 1. Like that, those records. I mean, maybe the Minutemen.
Okay, enough. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But
it's a fucking pleasure. It's a fucking pleasure to become your friend after the fact.
Well, it was so funny because I saw you play, and it sounds maybe really sort of snobby, but every now and then I'll see someone and I'll go, oh, they get it. They get it. And I see lots of bands play, and I've really enjoyed, and I can watch a cover band at a outside beer garden somewhere and think, sure, whatever. Yeah. And enjoy myself. But every now and then I'll see someone and I'll think, yeah, this is really good. They're understanding what they're doing. And I don't know quite how else to put it. You hate that word performing. It always brings I think there's there's a bit of a wheat chaff question you have to ask yourself when it comes to musical product. Because I think anyone can be like good or even great at what they do, but there's a certain question of like intention that I think I think the truly great, and I would never fucking lump myself in there, but I mean the truly great, their reason why what they're doing it for is what sets them apart. Like there's people who do it because they want to be popular, and that doesn't do it for me. That I don't think that's a reason enough. It's the people who are possessed, essentially, the people who need to do it, who are driven
to do it because of it, you know.
Mhm.
It's like the, you know, it's that whole idea of like, what do you really find important about art, or why is art art? And I think a lot of it has to do with intention.
Yeah,
Where
and I
what's
think
driving.
and the reason why I said yes some months after that fact, and you sent me a mail saying, "Oh, I'm going to be playing some." You laugh. I'm going to be playing some shows. Do you want to be my sideman for some shows? And I thought,
I know.
great, sure. It was like, yeah, okay.
What
And
a
I
dick
did.
move.
No, it's not a dick move. In fact, for me, it was great because it's what I was never really happy with. I wish I could have brought more to the table in terms of playing. I mean, we got on so well and we had such fun, and I think we
Yeah.
played some really good shows. But it was also done really, really quickly as well. So I forgive myself that. But I didn't think twice about it. I just thought, oh yeah, I've never done that before. Your songs, I really loved hearing your songs. I listened to them like around the house. So I was a fan almost immediately. So it wasn't like, yeah, oh, I'm some stranger has come and asked me to do this. And then when we started hanging out together, it just
Well,
clicked.
you know,
And, you know,
couple of Western Canadian punk kids that, I mean, you
yes.
know, you're, you know, around the same age, around the same idea, you know, I mean, it's not too much of a stretch to think that we might see eye to eye on certain things.
No,
Like kind
no,
of,
but there is
kind of hit a few
similarity
notes.
too. Also in your at least to mine anyway, to your attitude towards playing, towards um, getting on with people, or being respectful to people, the sort of scene that you play in. I mean, it could be someone's living room, but it could be Aki, it could be somewhere else.
Yeah.
You get by, you're honest, you don't rip people off, you're not any kind of sort of diva or anything like that. So it's
Yeah, well, you
easy.
know, I mean, thank you, and I mean, coming from you, obviously, it means the world to me. But because I respect you so much as a musician. But yeah, you just, I mean, come on, man, we're like, it's a job, like it's something that we do. You know, it's a skill, it's a craft, and just be honest about it. Like, you know, I always thought it was like, there's plumbers and there's carpenters and there's musicians. Like
Yeah,
it's, you
yeah.
know, you're there, you're doing something. I mean, it's a really awesome job because you rarely break a sweat unless you really want to.
Yeah.
You spend most of the time sitting on your ass. Like it's a pretty easy job. I mean, compared to
And the
like
people who
plumbing, you're
I,
never
I
you're
have
never
to
covered in shit. Rarely.
I have to break in here because there's I was thinking actually just before this interview that there are times, especially when you play a place like the Oki, or you're playing some art center somewhere, or you're in France and someone's invited you to their house in the country, and they're putting you up for the night and feeding you lovely food, and you're there in front of the locals who you can't even speak with, you know,
Yeah.
because you don't speak the language. And I feel like everyone else is doing all the heavy lifting. All I'm doing is just singing some songs on my guitar. And these people have driven out here from miles. They have to drive all the way home. And for me, I just like, wow. And it continues to happen. And that's absolutely a tribute to the strength of the alternative scene. I have no other word for it, and that it
Yeah.
still exists. And it was the same in the early days of No Means No, that while it's true we did go look for shows, particularly through other people, and people in Europe, you know, in Amsterdam and in Germany, Concurrent in Amsterdam, Ingrid, my wife, and her companions, and Dolph in Germany, and we'd just say, "Oh, you guys want a tour? Okay, we'll set you up a tour. There's some really cool people here. We'll do it for you."
Yeah.
And we'd play, you know, people's houses in the States who didn't know us from a hole in the ground before we were any name at all, and it's just like, "Yeah, okay, sure, play."
Sure.
And to this day, I'm so grateful to be part of that, and so happy that, you know, you can go out. Although now it's different, of course, because with the COVID thing, but yeah, that you can do that, and which is why, and I'm going to keep on talking here. When I saw you doing what you do, and talk to you about your touring and how you should go around and have your sort of contacts, and I've done this for years and built up a sort of group of people who you rely on when you want to go out. And that's when I suggested Carolyn, because, well, first of all, Carolyn's wonderful anyway. But I mean, we could have done this, the three of us, but it would just have been ridiculous. It would have just been like
One of
an
us
hour of chaos.
One of us eventually would have had to leave, because I mean that's three chatty Cathys. So it's like,
okay, we're talking, so people who don't know, we're talking about Carolyn Mark, who's long been a favorite of mine, who's a Canadian singer-songwriter. I don't have a better term at the moment.
And you introduced her and I to each other, and now
yes, because I just thought,
gone on to do all sorts of fun stuff too.
Yeah, and I mean, you're the type of music that you play in the one sense is very different. Although you're both playing acoustic guitars, generally you sometimes do stuff with bands. Mostly you do stuff just with you and your guitar. You got she in Canada has got her whole sort of series of people all the way across the country who she phones up every summer and says, yeah, I'm coming in, let me take a look in May. You got a living room for me, you got a bar for me.
Yeah.
But the type of music that you play actually is somewhat different. But I just thought, yeah, but there's so much in common with what you guys do. And then when I would see you together and talking with each other, and I get these like texts from Carolyn going, it's like, I love this man, he's amazing. And then when I saw you do the what was it, the cover of, you did so many covers,
REO
Speedwagon, it was just like, yeah.
That's where we.
I sort of laughed in the first 10 seconds, and then went, no, this is great. This is really good.
Yeah, well,
really
I mean, we've actually done a lot together, like a surprising amount more. Like when I think about it, like, so she came over. You sent her over with Rusty Ford.
Yeah, Mitch.
Yeah, who I didn't know until he came in. At that point
I didn't know him either.
I had that cafe in Castle, and so at that point they came over and I put them up. I put a show up there, and they had an extra day or two, I think, that they stayed at my place as well. And we got along well. And I mean, but I was busy. It wasn't super long, intense connections. And then I think it was the next year I was in Amsterdam, and I met you and Carolyn. And
in Amsterdam or in Haarlem?
First in Amsterdam, we met in that goofy little cafe above the store there.
Yeah.
Where you took me the very first time we met as well.
Yeah.
And then
the Hema. Yes.
Yeah. Very funny with the pink cake. And then at that point I was talking to her, and it was super funny because I was mentioning that I was coming over to Canada, and I was like thinking I might hit her up for a show because I'd helped her with a couple of shows. And
yeah.
And then she was like, hey, I'm doing a tour, hop on. And I was like, what? And she said, yeah, sure. I was like, oh, so my tour's booked. That's awesome. Like, so that whole tour was just covered, right? And so I was like, okay, well, at that point, like, I'm one of those people that, like, I got that strong loyalty thing in me. Like when you do me right, like I got your back, like, like that's just the way I really believe in that.
Yeah.
And she did me so right. I mean, it was just an amazing tour. And with, there was Chris Demeanor was on for a while from Calgary, and then Shirley Nome, this crazy, it was an amazing tour. And we just had this amazing, so much fun. And we sang together, and we played our separate sets and this and that. And it was we were all over the place. We started in Winnipeg. We actually went all the way into Ontario, and then we went all the way back to Victoria. And then I flew to Victoria. So we did the whole Western Canada together. And I was like, I got you. Come on over. And so she came over the one time we did Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands and Switzerland. And then she came over a second time, and we did, at that point I knew her a bit better, and I was like, let's do wine country. Because Carolyn loves her wine, right? So so we did the wine country, and then we did Spain and France and Italy, and then we were really playing by then we were playing as a duo, like half her songs, half my songs, harmonizing and guitar parts for both, and like we
Nice.
sort of solidified as a duo. And so the plan was then to go back this summer, and I was supposed to be doing a tour with her in Canada
Yeah.
this summer. And then
Yeah.
the gods of pandemology.
Actually, this is maybe an interesting way to sort of seg into the, at least in terms of shows and scenes, the North American vision on being an independent creative musician and the European vision. Now, European is a pretty broad term. I would often say, and probably still say, to people who are bands I might, have contact with in Canada, maybe younger bands or someone like Carolyn. But and I did say to Carolyn, I said, you should really come to Europe sometime. They'd love you. And it's not necessarily that Carolyn's type of music is super popular, but I'm thinking, no, you should come here and you should see how it can be. And I was so happy when I would, read some story about you guys playing somewhere and, on a beach or some winery or whatever, wherever you guys were playing. And that she could have that experience, which I feel so fortunate to have had with No Means No. I mean, it completely blew our heads off that someone would make a meal for you before a show.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah. And it's unbelievable. Like, it's one of those things where you like, why was that just not obvious before? Like, why didn't I assume that already as just a rational, compassionate human being?
It's all these small things, like sharing a meal with you, the backup bands or the co-bands, co-performers, whatever you want to call them, the sound people, the people running the place, and sits around a big table. It's like, okay, sound check's over. We're all going to eat now.
Yep.
And you sit around and you eat. And they say, there's beer here, but if you want any more, the fridge is just down there. Just one thing. You're like, yes, if it's empty, just tell us and then we can fill it up again.
Yeah.
Or you go to the south and it's like, oh, you should try this wine. It's really good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's I always make the joke about going to Belgium and how I mean, as much as I love going to Belgium, it's very dangerous because everybody wants you to try their favorite beer. And of course, Belgian beer is like starts at about 8% alcohol volume, I think, and goes up from there. So you can get pretty trash pretty fast.
Yes.
And the hangovers
is true.
in Belgium are legendary. So that's the occupational hazard of being a touring musician in Europe is definitely exposure to alcohol.
But you stayed here. I mean, you could have come and said, okay, I love this touring thing, right? I'm gonna go back home. I'm gonna try to do that there. Or what I want to know, and we have talked about this actually before, but you're kind of like me. You don't really have anything against your time in Canada completely. But at a certain point you went, there. Let's try there. And then the years passed, and you went, yeah, I like this. And then people go, don't you ever think about going back? In the first couple of years, you go, oh, maybe. And then afterwards, think, not so much. You happy? Yeah, actually, I'm happy here.
Yeah.
And I mean, not just as a musician, but and of course, there's people in every city in the world that are from other countries. And I find that really fascinating that people sort of just decide to become an outsider, sort of choose to be in a place where, in theory, it's not that they don't belong, but they didn't grow up there. It's maybe not their language. It's not their culture. And yet they think, yeah, that's a good place for me.
Yeah. Well, why did you?
Well, it could have gone either way, actually, because I was tired of the band, and I thought we were getting. I mean, quite frankly, I thought we were getting too big, and in some cases, a little too big for our boots. And people might say, yeah, but you're only playing in front of 1,500 people. It's like, yeah, well, that's about
you guys were on the cusp of definitely punk rock stardom at that point.
And music was shifting a little more traditional, sort of a little less experimental, a little more rocky, and it was like, okay, it's enough. I'm done with this, and I want to try something different before I'm an old man, just playing the hits. And And I'd been with Ingrid for a couple of years already, and she was one of the founders of the Concurrent, who distributed records and put on tours based out of Amsterdam.
Yeah.
A collective. Anyways.
Classic
And
collective.
so, yeah. And she said to me, well, shall we move to Canada? And I was like, well, you just got a place in the center of Amsterdam where she's born, and I'd love to try living there. And so we hemmed and hawed about this for a long time. And she was absolutely thinking like, oh, maybe I could start a new life in Canada. But I was maybe more anxious to get out than she was. I mean, for her, it was curious. It would be a curious thing to move out to Canada, whereas I was kind of desperate to live in, especially in a cosmopolitan city. I know you and I kind of disagree on the big city thing. You're much more of a small town kind of guy.
Country most.
But it's yeah, which is great. But for me, I love cities, and especially ones with like people from everywhere and that are hustle and bustle and all that.
And you're right in the middle.
Like, yeah, we're right in the middle. And so I thought, well, we'll go here and see how it goes. And I liked it, and I still like it. I mean, it's not that Canada is bad and the Netherlands is good, and there's things I always miss about Canada.
Me too.
But I really enjoy living here.
Yeah, there's things I miss, and there's things that I don't miss. And it's, I always joke that Canada is a great place to live if you're an animal, because it's not really like. What I love about Germany is, or not Germany, but Germany is the center of it because it's in the middle of Europe. But the European system is, everything is so close together. So it's not just about living in a city. It's about only having to go like 20 minutes to get to the next city.
Yeah.
And so for what I'm doing, that was probably the key deciding factor, was a guy in Winnipeg trying to get to the next show will get to like Regina after 600 kilometers, which is a bit of a disappointment. No offense, Regina, but you know what I mean? Like, it's like, like to put in all that work.
You've lived in Regina. You're allowed to say that.
I lived in Regina. But putting in all that work to get to that, to get to like another kind of uninspiring, small, out of the way community. Whereas you can, I mean, I can come up, I can play 3 shows in Berlin, and then it's an hour to Dresden, and then it's half an hour to Chemnitz, and then it's, or whatever, and then another half an hour to Leipzig, and then
the public transport is amazing.
Yeah, and I can grab a bus or a train or whatever, right? Like, and so that was sort of that was where it started. Was this really kind of, it was really functional at the beginning. It was like, I want to come over to Europe because I know that if I come over to Europe, I can actually play 100 shows a year without playing the same to this, without making all my friends come and see me way more times than they want to, and the stuff I do, it's you need a little bit of a break in between my shows to see me. I think I don't feel like I'm the kind of guy who can play, every weekend at the same corner bar, and people are going to want to check that out as much, just because it's kind of intense and kind of whatever. So I just love this idea, and coming from Winnipeg is, and I would probably say you're the same. I could ask you, but like in the isolation of being far away from everything else, and that huge leap you have to take to get to the first place, and then continued after that, like that was also something. What about you? Like, that's what I want. Like, did you feel like that way, or I
felt that? Yeah, I certainly, to go on a tour here, like with Tupin Din or with you, is I don't have a car. Wilf has a car, my partner in Tupin Din.
If we go to a current project of yours, if we're going to get current.
Yeah, it's all my projects are current.
Let's leap into the now.
But just like to get from one place, it'd be like, it's an hour and a half drive to Rotterdam. It's like, and then I think, hour and a half, it's like,
right?
Drive from Winnipeg to Toronto. Just drive that one time. That's all you need to do.
30 hours.
That'll tell you. 30 hours. Yeah, it's always 30. It's never like 31. So it's like, and you stop. Kekabeka Falls or whatever it's called, and
Yeah.
Sudbury.
Maybe if
and
you're lucky, you get a show in
Crocs and Rolls.
Crocs. Yeah. Shout out to Crocs. Shout out to Crocs. Oh.
So yeah, there's that, and just how diverse culture is here.
Also.
At least where I am, I think it's fantastic. I mean, of course, Canada is diverse, which leads me actually to another subject I wanted to bring up, which is in Canada. I think at least when I was there, people had this thing where, and it's a great thing. It is a really great thing that people say, "Oh yeah, he's from Poland originally, but he's Canadian as I am," you know. And I'm hoping that's the exact same way now. You know, immigrants are called newcomers. It's a very Canadian, nice, pleasant term.
Yeah.
And maybe just to not be the United States or to spite the United States, which in many ways is a great way to just drive Canadian policy. Just look at, you know, Republican policy in the States, do the complete opposite. Many good things will come out of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. But here, for instance, in the Netherlands, and I've talked about this a lot with Ingrid and my son Dexter, that I've always felt welcome here. I've never had anyone ever tell me, you know, go home or you know, nothing like that.
Yeah.
But I'm not Dutch.
No.
I'm not. And I say that in the sense that
you're too short, Andy.
Well, there's that. Yeah. But I mean, there's the how I look for starters, but that's okay, fair enough. But it's I'm not from here.
Yeah.
And I'm here like in like many people from other cultures that are here and welcome and have friends and Dutch and otherwise. Actually, I don't think I have any Canadian friends here. I don't think I ever have had any Canadian friends in the Netherlands. There you go. But at the same time, at least for me, I don't have the feeling I'm Dutch. And I don't think people see that I'm Dutch. Now, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is it that works here? And is it that in Canada, it needs to be the other way? How do you feel when you're in Germany? Do you have like a German EU passport where you can say, haha, I can speak German and I'm as German as anybody here?
There's a lot to unpack in that topic for sure. I think there's a whole bunch of it depends headings to go into this. First of all, it depends where you are in any given place. I mean, you're in Amsterdam, which is an absolutely international place.
Yes.
That would not be the same if you were in some small town in the Netherlands, in the same way that it's not the same. I actually live in a I love how I point out the window like that's the direction it is. I have no idea what direction. I live in a small town called Mansbach, which is tiny, and they're very suspicious there. They don't want to talk. They don't want to talk to. I'm a foreigner for sure. I'm an okay foreigner because I'm a white man, and of course there's a lot of that in Europe, and it's rising. And that's the other. It depends. Like you and I have been made to feel welcome here, I think, because we're the good foreigners, right? Like, I mean, that is a thing, depending on who you talk to. But I mean, there are, you know, like my girlfriend and I go around the corner to the little. We're in Berlin right now, and we're in Wedding, which is a very ethnically diverse neighborhood.
Is it in old East Berlin or?
It's actually northwest. But,
okay.
It's a lot of people of people from immigrant backgrounds, they say, and visually different, skin color, whatnot, and they all keep to themselves. And around the corner here, there's a traditional German Kneipe that is for the Berliners. The Berliners hang out there, right? Like, and you go there, and we went there, and they're very friendly, of course. And the woman who was bartending the other day when we were there, she came up and she said, "Where are you from?" And that is a real prickly pear, because where are you from for me is just a little bit of a pain in the ass because I have to say Canada and then they have to go, oh, Canada must be beautiful, blah, blah,
So
blah, blah, blah.
why
And then
don't you live there?
Then we have to talk about,
Yeah.
have you ever seen a grizzly bear? And like, I mean, like, so, but if we were Africans and we went there, it would not be the same tone. There would be all sorts of undercurrents of where are you from? Give me the money before I give you the beer. You know, all these little subtleties that happen. And so, and in Canada, I would say it's probably the same. It also depends on what part of Canada. I think you have more, fear of the other, let's say, the further away you get from places where the other is normal. Does that make sense? So like,
Yeah,
in,
like
in
Toronto,
Vancouver or Toronto,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
you know, but like in I don't know, Moose Jaw, like,
Yeah,
you know, it's a different kettle of fish entirely because they're like, who's this guy? He doesn't look the same as us. I don't trust that. Like, that's where it comes from. But anyways,
but you're right about how people from certain backgrounds get treated different than people from other backgrounds. And a friend of mine, she didn't exactly call me out, but she pointed out, she said, because I was saying expats, and she goes, yeah, why is it that when people come from Britain to the Netherlands, they're expats, but if you come from Morocco, they're immigrants?
Exactly.
And the people in Morocco may have just enough money to come here, set up their own business. People from Britain come over, they're expats, the other ones are immigrants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People don't say, oh, those expats. They might say that if they're talking about, I don't know, it's a very specific slice of news in town, you know, the expats and their fancy cars or their Airbnbs that they're trying to run or something. But that means like, yeah, but we're talking about these immigrants and they're not really immigrant. You know what I mean by immigrants?
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah, exactly. It's very subtle, and it's something that's I think one of the great things of this latest wave of racial awareness that's happened around the Black Lives Matter movement, and is that I think we're thinking a little bit deeper about it, and also a little more broadly in terms of it's more kind of regular conversation. I think these things come in waves, but that's happening right now, and I think that's a really good thing. The other one is the term tribe, right? Like you talk about a tribe, but if you talk about like what are they called, the Yoruba, the Nigerian. There's one of the main Nigerian tribes.
Oh,
tribes. One of the main Nigerian
tribes
tribes is millions upon millions of members, tribal members, right? But Iceland is not even 500,000 people, and we call that a nation. Why? Why aren't they the tribe? Like, right?
Yeah.
So it's that same thing. Like it's the same as immigrant versus expat. I like to refer to myself as a repatriated expat. Because clearly I'm not like, look at me. My ancestors are not Canadian. Like, it's not, I'm not a Ojibwe. Like, I'm just coming back where I came. I just went back where I came from, Why don't you go back where you came from? All right. I'll go back to
here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
but I mean, that said, in a lot of ways, things are really so progressive, at least where I am here, and in a lot of places in Europe, compared to where we're from. Even things like, you were talking to a fellow the other day, your American friend, about the political system.
Yeah.
In the States. It was a great interview, by the way. And I made through both of them. Both of them really super.
I got a new one just came out yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that. I haven't looked at it yet.
That was pretty fun.
And, but at a certain point he said, I don't know how it is in Europe. And he carried on. And I thought, you seem like a really nice fellow. You've known him obviously for a long time. But it occurred to me, it's like, he looks like an educated guy. And he said, well, I don't know how they have politics over in Europe. I'm thinking, yeah, but Europe knows really well how the politics are in the States in terms of having a two-party system.
Yes.
And when you tell people from either Canada or the States, and the idea of representational rep by pop, sort of proportional representation, that's the word I'm looking for. They're like, oh, well, yeah, but that couldn't work in Canada. Oh, why not? Well, because then, you know, you'd have someone in Ottawa deciding what's happening to someone in Nunavut.
Calgary. Calgary is usually the big one.
Yeah, and
they're the ones that
with
make all the
here,
noise.
and you say, well, okay, this is the way it works here. If 10% of the people vote for Party C, the parliament will be populated by 10% of those people.
Yes.
And they're like, we have two parties. We have a two-party. We have a third party, and you think, wow. And the politics are far from fine here. I can promise you.
Yes.
But there's certain things that I really dig actually about the voting system and the basic sort of structure of how the parliament works here. And for that, I'm really, really happy to be here. And
sure. Sure. Well, you know, and I always like the United States is 4% of the world's population. You know, they definitely occupy more than 4% of the world's psychic space. Like, you know, we are all well aware. It's my one criticism of the Black Lives Matter movement is the idea that it's like, that's the American definition. You know, and to be at a demonstration in Berlin and to have people saying George Floyd, it's like, what about all the people of color or Black people who are getting killed by police in Germany? Why are we focusing on somebody in the United States? And that's just because of the American media machine.
Yeah.
Right, which comes back to our beginning thing where I was talking about fame, and it permeates the culture in the United States, and as a result, I think to a lesser extent, but in the same direction, Canada, that we obsess over fame and obsess over drawing attention to ourselves and selling ourselves, and then it permeates everything. So it's also involved in what I think is a very good cause. But then it says the American story of Black Lives Matter is the one that should be applied to the entire world. But it's not. It's the one that should be applied to America. And we should be definitely supportive of that movement. But if we're going to take something away from it as people living not in America, I think we should be applying it to the racism that is happening in our own countries.
Oh, indeed.
And not just say, oh, isn't it great that they're tearing down a statue in Birmingham, Alabama? What the hell does that have to do with Germany? Like, shouldn't we be talking? And it is happening here. I mean, in Germany, they're changing.
Here too.
Right, which is great. So we've taken that lead. But at the beginning, I was a little bit like, okay, let's not. Enough, America. Fucking get out of my head. Like, you know, like. Piss off. You've had your time. You know, like 4% of the world's population. And like, I know way too much about them. And it's because of the media. It's this thing. It's like, it's all this.
So you never wanted to be famous?
No more than the typical ego bullshit. But I mean, like rationally, I don't think it's a valuable thing to do with your life. I mean, no, sure, it would be great to, you know, sell a bunch of tickets and make a bunch of money, and but I mean,
no, it's just something I never. I'm not talking about sort of, you know, kind of false modesty. It's like no, that's not for me. Fame, you know, I'm an actor. My audience is my love. I think that with the endeavors that I've done creatively in my life, the last thing I wanted to do is come across in any way of being self-important, and that if a show is really you can't, so you can't have a show without an audience. Well, apparently you can now, but yes. But you really, everyone's on the same level to me, and I don't mean that in some sort of deep way, but quite literally, show is the people who put it on, the people who visit, the people who are playing on stage, obviously. Yeah, and you know, the idea that people talk about, you know, famous musicians, famous guitar players, famous movie stars. I made the mistake of, I keep on hitting this microphone, but it's a very nice microphone that I'm hitting.
Excellent. Yeah. Mic placement. We need to talk about mic placement.
Yes. I watched the last Tarantino movie, the Hollywood one, because it was just on. And I was like, really? This is like, isn't it great when all these people were so beautiful and so cool and wonderful and famous? And I mean, I was rooting kind of for the Manson people by the end of the movie, to be quite honest.
Yeah, it's a little masturbatory.
Yeah, and this sense of that. Oh, did you hear? Could be, I don't know, Prince William's son, or I don't know. I don't even know the name. Is it Prince William is the son, right?
I have no idea.
Of the one of those. The next king.
One of Charles's kids.
Yeah, one of Charles's kids, his kid, and it's like he had a birthday today and he wore a blue hat. You know, great.
Yeah. Exactly.
He learned 2 words in French.
Yeah.
Oh, major story.
Exactly.
But that also applies to politics as well, and the sense that people have a need or compulsion to have people there who. People say that about Neil Young all the time. I'm a huge Neil Young fan. I love Neil Young's music, and I think he's done a lot of great things. But I had a row one time on tour about Neil Young with people from Alternative Tentacles, my friend Debbie Gordon, and whatever. Well, drinks were consumed. I should preface this,
All right,
but it was we had this thing where it was like, oh, Neil, he's amazing, he's great. He's this, he's that. And I said, oh, yeah, he is, but he's also a millionaire, and he's just a rock star, you know. And Biafra told me the story about him putting up some huge fence around his house and pissing off the neighbors or whatever. Fine, and that's great. But for some reason, I don't know why him. I shouldn't really pick on him. I could pick on so many others, and yet it's the one that maybe.
Neil. No, look, I'm from Winnipeg. I'm giving you permission.
But you know, recently he was suing Trump for using his songs. Great, this is a good thing. But it wasn't that so much as the people who I knew was like, yeah, Neil, you tell him, support our Neil. And it was like, no, Neil phoned up a lawyer and said, can you, or his people probably, and said, yeah, I don't want Trump using my song. Can you deal with it? Great, let me know when it's sorted.
Mm-hmm. And they said, okay, first thing we need to do is we need to get publicity on this. So we'll call up the publicist so that everyone knows that Neil is doing this, because that will move units, because we're going to have to pay for that lawyer, and we will pay for that lawyer by selling more records because of the media that is generated from him doing this. I mean, it's all a system, right? And also when Neil picks up the phone and calls a lawyer, his first question is, his first question isn't, how much is this going to cost me? Because he's so fucking rich. Like, that's not an issue. He knows that he can afford to talk to a lawyer for half an hour. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think it's a bad thing when people in the public eye decide to use their fame, as they say, for a good cause. But at the same time, you know, keep it in perspective.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly. And fame takes everything completely out of perspective.
Yeah.
It's inherent in the concept.
Yeah. Like, I remember reading the liner notes to a Crass Greatest Hits. They put out like a collection of singles, I think.
That's Greatest Hits.
Crass. It was.
That's a real oxymoron, you know.
No, it was like their I don't know, all their singles or something. Their singles were absolutely great, but I found that the text that was inside, which was written by the people who were in Crass, who I really respected Crass in so many ways.
Absolutely.
It was really, really sort of self-serving. We were the first who did this, and we were the ones who did this, and we did this, and we did this, and then we did this. And so what we decided to do is, and I was like, was this really necessary? You know, I just think that people can be a little more, you know, it's great what you've done. Thank you for recognizing that, and but is this sort of self? I don't know what the word I'm searching for. It's like self-importance.
It's self-congratulatory, first of all. But this leads me to an interesting question that I would love to ask you. Oh, and your thoughts on nostalgia. Do you think
Mhm.
much about nostalgia as a concept? Like, because
Yeah,
you're kind of involved in it now, whether you like it or not, right? I
yeah.
mean, like,
Well,
what are
there's
your
a book
thoughts on
coming
this?
out. There's a
Right, right,
NOMEANSNO book coming out.
right. There you
And
go.
my first thoughts were, no, no.
Mm,
And then I kind of thought, uh, my friend Scott said, well, the guy who's doing the book's a really nice guy. He's a really good fella. And he's a big fan, but he's a really nice guy. And why don't you just talk to him? I said, okay, I'll talk to him. And he was a nice guy. He is a nice guy. Uh, uh, Very friendly and open. And his idea really was, look, you guys mean a lot to the people around our hometown, and you got a lot of fans that you've made over the years. And it would be really nice to have a book where there's lots of pictures and interviews with people and just a sort of hometown band makes good. Wow, I flipped through one of those. Oh, look at this. Oh, these are the outtakes from the wrong sessions, the pictures with the
so,
cow head. Oh, cool.
I was at this
And
show, but I'm just off camera.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I kind of thought, okay. And I thought of bands that maybe I would want to see a book like that of. But nostalgia, yeah, it's weird. It changes with age too, because at a certain point, I just stopped listening to so much new music, and I sort of
Yeah.
regretted. I was, in order to listen to new music, I had to have a sort of a purpose for doing it. I did a radio show for a few years online, and that kind of forced me into going out. I didn't want to just play my old record collection. I wanted to hear what was happening now. But it was more and more difficult to just have your finger on the pulse, so to speak. My son is far better that way, of course, because he's in his 20s. But nostalgia, yeah, it has its place, but it's a nice place to visit, but I don't want to live there. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
People talk about, I was talking about this the other day about, the rock bands of the golden era of the 70s and the Stones and the Beatles and the Eagles. And people talk about that about movie directors as well. And one by one, they sort of almost all of them fall to the side, and then there's about 3 left standing.
Yeah.
I like hearing old music and old albums I haven't discovered. I didn't even know the Zombies Odyssey and Oracle and Odyssey until about 2 years ago. Great records.
Me too. Like, it's only been about maybe a little longer, but not much, maybe 5 years. And it is a good record.
Yeah.
Front to back. It's just hook after hook after hook. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Every song. And
but that's not nostalgia for me. Nostalgia for me would be going like, oh, I'm going to buy this Sex Pistols box set because there's a new remaster of Nevermind the Bollocks.
Exactly. Or that flutter in your heart when you're like Heart of Gold, when you hear that song and you're like,
yeah,
all of a sudden I got, bell-bottom corduroys on and I'm sitting in the back seat of my parents' car with the windows open to crack, listening to the radio while they go shopping. Like, you know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. Nostalgia's a bitch.
You can't escape it in a way. It's memory.
Yeah.
It's your memory of which sort of gets hazier over time. But particularly as far as music is concerned, I think most people can say that the bands that made the most impact in their lives or albums are when they're around like 17, 18, 19, maybe 20. And then from then it begins to sort of tail off. But those years are really put these deep memories in you. And I can say I've listened to thousands upon thousands of albums in my life, and hundreds that have just really moved me and influenced me. But there are absolutely albums that came out when I was 17, and they don't really sound like the most cool or what is now considered in records. I mean, if I say like, yeah, I like the Sex Pistols album, but it was the album that completely started me and got me here. It was, and I can listen to it now and be thrilled by it. Yeah. I'm not saying it's a great album for everybody else and whatever. In fact, I can see now in how derivative it was in many ways, and that it maybe doesn't seem as exciting as it was when I was young, but it doesn't take anything away from my memory of that. But is memory nostalgia? Or is nostalgia memory?
No, I think nostalgia is like Well, memory, I mean, memory, that's, I would love to have like a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist who knows about the
Mhm.
machinations of that in your box at some point. Um,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I don't know a lot about the like the actual technical stuff of memory, but like nostalgia for me anyways, I see it as like it's that drug, it's that endorphin that you get from going back. Uh,
Hmm.
those were the days, and it doesn't even have to be about music or movies or even pop,
No,
even
no.
necessarily like straight pop culture, but like like you see like um, a little photo come up on Facebook that's like a cassette tape and a pencil, and it's
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
hit like if you know the connection between these two things, right? Like and when it does, like for you and me, you get that it's a hit. It's like a little
Yeah,
endorphin hit,
absolutely.
and so that it can become somewhat addictive, um, that we want to go back because it's safe and it's true and it
Yeah.
feels good, and so we can say, and I mean, nostalgia is what brought us to this "Make America Great Again" motif,
Yeah.
right?
The problem
Nostalgia is
is when
what
people
brought us,
say
yeah.
that, and you see it always on like comments. It doesn't matter what year you're from. Choose any music genre or movie, and if you look at the comments on YouTube, people are like, "This is when they made really good music,
No,
not like they
right.
do today with the those
Quantized drum
rappers."
beats, and yeah, sure.
Yeah, and Kanye West, he can't even sing.
Love
Um,
it, love it.
and yeah, and yeah, you can just go through any, just choose something. If you choose, I don't know, an Eagles album, an early Eagles album, or you choose a Beatles album, or yeah, you can choose something. You can choose a Pavement album for fuck's sake, and
Mm,
you'll find people say, yeah, this is this is when indie music really was indie and meant something.
right.
And I've never, very proud to say, I've never been the type of person who suddenly or believes that suddenly um, all these people in the world are going to be, and the youth are going to be incapable of making creative, wonderful things. It's just
Oh,
absolute nonsense. I am
oh,
out of the loop. I'm almost 58 years old. I am almost entirely out of the loop. But I
sure.
have absolutely total faith in that out there in some basement, on some laptop, in some garage somewhere, someone is doing something which is fantastic and
Sure.
great. I just don't know what it is because I'm
And I think
old and boring.
yeah, I think on two things. I mean, one, yes, regardless of whether it's true or not, we have to believe that, because a world where we don't believe that is not a world I want to live in. First of all, second of all, we have to remember that all this other shit, like all this new stuff that we have, is just more tools. It's like creativity is a it doesn't it's a priori to a guitar or a
Yeah,
laptop
yeah,
or a paintbrush, or right, I mean, like we
yeah.
create different tools to be creative with, we find ways to be creative, but
Hmm.
ultimately we're going to be creative, and if we have more stuff, it doesn't mean one way or the other that there's going to be more or less creativity, good creativity or whatever you want to call it, but it's
Yeah,
just a
yeah,
tool. And so
yeah.
of course I agree with you. I believe that we have to believe that people are using these tools to be creative.
But
um
otherwise, they would be otherwise the current, say, generation of people who are 17 to 25 would be different than any other generation in human history in terms of probably their creative impulses and
yeah,
outing that somehow. Uh, yeah, it's. I wish I was more sort of on the ball, and maybe I will reach a time when I think, yeah, I'm going to check out new bands and I'm going to be more involved. But on the other hand, at a certain point, because you're like 10 years younger than I am. You're like what, 48,
I'm
47, something like that?
50. I'll be 50
You're
this
50.
year,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, okay. But
That's right, I've crossed I'm not yet, I'm not quite 50, but I'm soon to cross the threshold into the
okay.
second half of my
Uh,
century.
but yeah, you are a little out of it, and I don't believe in the thing that's like, oh, why should this, a man who stands up on stage and make a spectacle of himself when he's 60 years old playing the guitar? Oh, it's terrible. I don't believe that at all.
No.
If you're 99 and you're jumping up on stage and dancing and whatever,
If you can still
great.
get your ass on stage, do it. Yeah.
No problem. But there are times I think like because I write less and I play less, and I see it kind of disappearing, and I kind of think, what am I doing? And why isn't it that I have less of the impulse to sit there and like pick up a guitar and play or write a song? I remember Rob telling me when they were in like Amsterdam, maybe 2010 or something like that. I was talking to him and he said, yeah, how's it going and whatever. And at the NOMEANSNO show here. And he said, yeah, I haven't written a song for like 6 years.
No.
And he just said it like sort of casually, not in a sort of a dramatic way. He was just like, nah, I just don't do it anymore.
Yep.
And people say, oh, why did NOMEANSNO stop? Well, maybe Rob, he just thought, yeah, just don't play anymore.
Yeah, maybe you're done. Like, and that's totally fine. I mean, that's the other thing. I don't think like, and this reminds me, it comes back to this, what we were talking about with the way they do things for supporting artists in Europe, for supporting touring bands or whatever. It's the person on stage is just part of the whole thing, right? And being involved in the creative process doesn't mean being the creative force or being the focus. You can encourage others to be creative. That's equally as important, if not more important. You need more people in the crowd than you do on stage. I mean, like, so it's not like just because you're not, and this is, I'm just riffing here, but just because you're not creating your own, writing your own song or whatever, your own poem or making your own movie or whatever, doesn't mean you're not a support for the general creative process that we're all involved in.
Yeah. Yes.
And this is a big theme for me with this whole series, is this idea of like creativity and the value of creativity, and that it's important to remain creative, and that creativity is not about fame. It's not about drawing, it's not about like me. It's about encouraging other people's creativity as much, if not more. And we live in a time right now where creativity is incredibly important, because we are at a tipping point, and I really believe the world can kind of go either way right now, and we need to be creative in our solutions. And that creativity is all connected. Like, a scientist also uses the same creative juices that an artist does to come up with that eureka moment. And so I'm trying to be as pro-creative as I can right now without being pro-creative. You know what I mean? Like
yes, yeah, I do.
Do stuff, make stuff, create, encourage other people's creativity, consume other people's creativity, do it, get in there.
It's a shame. Because I'd asked you, I said, I know some creative people, would you be into interviewing them? You said, well, sure, if they're cool people and whatever, maybe. And I thought of this one person I know who's an artist, and she lives in the States, and she keeps really much to herself. But absolutely fascinating person who's done mostly photography, but has been busy with collage especially during the COVID crisis. I sort of ran it by her first, saying, look, this is my friend of mine, I said who you were. She goes, yeah, I just don't like to be sort of public about anything. But thanks anyway. But just to know that there are people like her, and I can name other people as well. Well, David P. Smith comes to mind in Victoria. I don't know if you know David Smith, who's a friend of Carolyn. Okay.
I may have met him.
He's a musician. He plays piano and accordion, and he makes really bizarre art, and runs his own paint company. And his partner is Betty Ann Lampman, who is also a total other creative soul on her own. And these people, I see what they do, and while I love what they do, and I wish I could sometimes, I do write things, but I like things more, but they come so fast and furious. I end up doing, like. But when I see them or talk to them, I tell what I like about them so much. But the fact that they're there doing it gives me a good feeling, and gives me a not hope, but yeah, maybe hope.
Yeah, I think so. I think hope it might be the right word.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of hopelessness right now, and people who are being creative in the world are doing all of us a service, and especially if they're doing it, the more they're doing it as an end to itself, right? Instead of a means to something else. Like they're not trying to become famous. They're just creating because they need to create. And
well, it's why when people often have asked me in past interviews, they said, "How did you start playing guitar? How did you get into music?" And I always have this sort of same story, which was that my brother had a guitar, electric guitar. He was into the Stones and stuff. And it's my older brother, and my sister, who was 2 years older, she was taking folk lessons, and she had an acoustic guitar. And at a certain point, both of them got bored, and so I took my brother's songbooks and my sister's acoustic guitar and went in my room and taught myself how to play the guitar. But it wasn't because I wanted to become a guitar player or I wanted to become a singer. That wasn't it. The reason I did it and do it to this day is because I just thought, wow, I want to sing songs. How do I sing songs and hear how that sounds? Okay, I need to learn how to play some chords. Hey, maybe I can do this chord. And if I sing it, I can do it this way. Cool. With no other purpose than simply to just do that. And even the first band I was in was like, we could be in a band. Yeah, we could. Well, let's do it. Okay. I never had, I want to be in a band. I want to become a guitar player. I want to be someone on stage. Never crossed my mind. And I know it's not that it's bad that someone grows up and says, I want to be the next, I don't know, Jimi Hendrix or whatever. That's great.
No. Or
that
that
wasn't
it's bad
me, though.
that someone doesn't want to be. They're both valid.
Yeah. Just for me, it was, just to do that. And the idea of being an important person or a significant creative being, no, I was still conscious about what I create, and I think I want it to be different. People would say, "Oh, why don't you put drums behind 2-pin din?" And Wilf and I would be like, "Yeah, but then it would make no sense. Then we're just a band." But you guys would sound so good with drums.
So it would be a 3-pin din then.
Yeah.
Right. You'd have to change the name.
I know, on the website, and it would be really a pain.
What a fucking hassle. Yeah. Well, Andy, I'm very glad that you create. For one, I love everything I've heard from you. I love that solo record. You've only got the one solo record though. Right?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
I think you might want to. If I had a wish list, I would like to.
If I had a wish list, I would.
If I had a wish list, I would like to hear another one of your another Andy Kerr solo record.
I'd like to see another. I'd love to make so many different records and music with people. And I did a record with Howie Reeve, half of a record anyway.
That's right. I've been seeing about that. He's a fascinating guy.
He's wild. He is wild. And he's such a sweetheart. And he did the same thing, basically. Andy, would you like to play on a song? It's like, well, we sort of joked around and said, oh, let's do a version of a pop group song, We Are All Prostitutes. And then I was kind of like lagging behind. Well, have you got any ideas yet? I was like, not yet. He said, well, tell you what, I have this song which just has a bass to it, which is like all of his songs. Yeah. And maybe would you like to add something to it? Right. Okay. And so I did. And then it ended up being half of a record. And so I'm happy I'm doing that this year. But I'd love to do another Hisnell record with my friend Scott. I'd like to do another 2-pin din record with and without Jos from the X, who sang on the last record we did. I'd like to record something with you, although it doesn't necessarily need to be acoustic. I'm thinking more electric, actually.
Well,
okay, and then there's people I know in England who I think are just fantastic. Then it occurred to me, actually, what might be a far more realistic goal would be to simply do one of those vanity projects where I just phone up all my friends and say, I'd like you and me to do a song.
Fucking
and then phone up another
friends.
2 people, say, essentially,
right on,
and say like, I really think you're a great singer. Do you have any lyrics? Great. Send them to me. I'll write some music. and just borrow a microphone and sing. Doesn't have to be good
Yeah.
quality, and just do a bunch, not an album. I don't even know what an album is these days.
Just start collecting songs, right? Until you get to
Yeah,
a
with
point
people
where-
who I know, because I know so many talented people. It's so wonderful that I get to, and what's great, I get in free when they play in town.
Yeah,
So
right.
there you go. No,
Right.
that's the main reason, actually.
That's why you started playing guitar. I'm gonna get into a band, and then I'm gonna have success in that band. Then I'm gonna quit that band, and then I'm gonna have all these friends come through town, and they're all gonna get me in for free. That was
Andy,
your plan.
come on
That
down
was
to
your
the
plan.
show.
That was your plan.
Okay, sure.
I'm a
That
little
was my
skint right
plan.
now. Can I get in for?
Yeah.
Isn't there a lyric? There's a lyric, isn't there? There's a famous No Means No lyric about that.
Oh, this must be. And
Come on in for free.
You and Carolyn and I need to
Yeah.
do a song or two.
That would be great.
Doing a cover would be too easy, although I would be up for that too. But I was taking 2 songs and with like 3-part harmonies and the whole. So this is also.
We love the harms. We love the harms.
You guys sound so good together.
Oh, we say, well, she's a great singer. She's just she's a
but
really good musician. Like she really knows music, right? So she can pick the note much more. I just kind of feel it. Like I go, I think that's the right note. And she goes, no, this is the right note. And she goes to the piano and finds it. And like, so she's
watching
she's
her
got that
do
skill.
I mean, she can be super silly, and that's great. And that's Carolyn.
Yes,
but
she can.
yeah, but you know, the times I've seen her play, I mean, years ago, but also when we were watching her play with Mitch or Rusty in Haarlem, and you know, there's whatever 8 people on the floor. I'm like a few feet away from her, just sort of looking up, and she's doing her songs, a lot which I've heard before, and when she gets in that groove, you just, you know, like, you don't know exactly what's happening, and she just sings, and that voice comes out, and you're like, you're just taken somewhere else, you know. And I have to say, have the very similar thing, you know, when you do like Numbers, that song, it's just, I don't breathe when you're doing that song. You know?
That's cool. Thank you. Enough of the. I can't believe you're doing this.
Nah.
But Carolyn is what I mean. This is so funny. Where this conversation, there's a large chunk of it has been about Carolyn, and and I ultimately would like to interview her. So I guess when I interview her, we'll talk about you the whole time.
No.
But
no, I think she just represents, as to use people who have. I always use this expression, don't like it, that mean it. I'm not saying that other people are disingenuous or they don't mean it in what they do, but it's in there. There's something in there, and it's not artificial. It's not put on. I don't see it as a performance. Like, this is me doing my sad song. This is me doing. It's just you guys being you and putting it out there.
Yeah, which is what I love about this format, the singer-songwriter format, for lack of a better term, is it's so, you know, it really, the good ones are just, they're a personality that get on stage.
It is. It's not so much the music, it's as them, and it's everything like that.
Yeah, and it's surprising that you have to strip away so much before you can see that. Like, you have to get the one person on stage by themselves to really get that. It's hard to find that with a group, because the group then has that dynamic that creates a certain energy that is then the group's energy.
It can work if you're in the right environment. I mean, never at a fucking festival. I don't know. I'm not a festival guy. I've literally played one festival in my entire life. One. But it's the idea that you'd be there with 20,000 people and there's some huge screen at the back. I just think thousands go and thousands come say, "Oh, I saw Radiohead play. They were amazing." Like, how do you know? Yeah. How do you know they were amazing? You can't know.
I couldn't agree with you more. I always feel like big shows are just really poorly mixed live records. Like, I mean, you're just hearing everything out of the mains. There's no sound from the stage. It's too big. You don't
Yeah.
see the people; they're just specks off. You're probably watching them on TV, anyways. So
Yeah.
it's not about the band. It's about the status, and that all feeds into
Yeah.
that same fame bullshit. Like
Hmm.
idea that's like like you have these conversations with people about bands that you've seen, and people
Hmm.
start listing off these bands, and it just gets super long. And then before long, you realize that the majority of their musical experience has been the festival experience. So you pay one
Yes.
ticket, you go for one weekend, and you get a good 30 bands you can list in
Yeah.
your brag of the bands that you've seen, right?
Hmm.
I've barely seen any bands ever because I'm busy playing, man. Like, I don't go to shows that much because I when I'm not playing a show, I don't want to go out. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so it's I don't know. It's just just a different approach. Um, but yeah, this we lost a pretty important songwriter. Speaking of famous people,
Oh
in our COVID
yeah,
lockdown,
John.
John,
Yeah.
that one really hit me. I
Yeah.
mean, we all knew it. He's been dying for about
Yeah.
20 years now, but like,
Yeah.
with the cancer and with I think he had lung problems too, and
Yeah. Yeah.
he had all sorts of problems already. Um, he was a huge smoker and a big drinker, so it's not surprising. But yeah, it still hurt when he went.
Yeah. I feel way more of a connection with his music than to someone like Dylan. I mean, Dylan's remarkable in a lot of ways, and I use that word specifically, remarkable.
Yes.
But I have such a sort of deep affection for John Prine's music.
And me too. The funny thing is when you play John Prine for somebody who's never heard it before, like 99.9% of the time, the first thing to come out of their mouths is he sounds like Dylan. But but
Yeah.
but for me, it's like I never listen to John Prine and think this guy sounds like Dylan, even though he
No.
does. Even though he does, it's certainly when you get to like Sam Stone. I mean, his voice is so Dylan.
Yeah.
To his wife
Yeah.
and family, like it's the same.
Yeah. Yeah, but lots of people did that then too. I mean, Butch
Sure.
Hancock from Texas, he has a way of lyric writing, which is, totally Dylanish, though he doesn't sound like him. But I mean, the way the songs are written, they're very much that way.
But yeah,
But
John, did you hear the last John record, The Tree of Forgiveness?
no, I haven't heard that yet.
Do yourself a huge favor.
Mm.
It's really some of his best work. Really, like, and it's
Steve Earle's son just died. Did you hear?
Yeah, that was crazy. We haven't, as of recording, ladies and gentlemen, we
Yes.
do not know the cause of this, but I'll keep you informed. No, we don't know why, but he was 38, and who knows? He was a notorious partier when he was younger, but the public message has been that he doesn't party as an adult. He's not a partier, so we don't know if that was the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when you have a pandemic, people start dying. So who knows? Maybe it was a COVID related.
Andy Gill from the Gang of Four, and he died in whatever was January, I think, or the beginning of February. And people are like, yeah, he just suddenly got sick. And this is really before people put two and two together. Then a couple months later, they said, oh yeah, he had been in China on tour, had come back, and he mysteriously got a lung illness and died. It's like, so he quite likely, Andy Gill was one of the sort of first celebrity, Western celebrity musicians to go down to the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I wear my mask at any rate.
Yes, when I was talking with my friend Joanna, who lives in Nijmegen.
Mm-hmm.
I think you met her when we played there.
Maybe.
I think she came to. No, she didn't. Bart did. Her husband did, but she didn't. But anyways, she was telling me that the actual rules in the Netherlands are not. You don't have masks not a compulsory rule. You don't have to wear them.
It's really wishy-washy, and it's basically the government wanting their cake and eat it too. They don't want to piss off the businesses, because we have a coalition, which is very much sort of neoliberal. Yeah, they have to do something. So they just tell people you should stay away from each other. You should wear masks in busy places. We'll just leave it to you.
Yeah,
and the amount of people
because they want to keep
whatever.
the businesses going, right? They want to keep business
Yeah.
going. And
And not only that, I mean, to be fair to the businesses, you have one part of town where they're like, yeah, all this area, all these people need to wear masks. And then some other small business somewhere is like, yeah, well, they don't for some reason. Then the place where they do have to wear masks, I think, yeah, but what's the difference? You know, there's a lot less people who come to us, and yet you're saying that that's okay on this market. It's not required on this market, but on this market, you say, yeah, it's too busy, so they need to wear masks. So these vendors have an advantage over us and all this kind of stuff. It's crazy.
you know, and I mean, again, I'm not a big fan of getting into too much of this COVID talk. I'm not a scientist. You're not a scientist, but
Yeah.
but it seems like this whole thing is pretty new to everybody. Like no one's really been through this before. I mean,
No.
and literally no one has ever been through this before. Not with the media we have, the way we have multimedia and the way we have internet and all of this stuff. And then add to that, like, it's like, you know, we're so real time and we're so on top of all the details. We don't know how to react. And so we're figuring it out as we go along. So there's been a lot of improvisation in this particular pandemonium. And so I'm not super quick to judge decisions that have been made in terms of wrong or right, because I really don't know.
No. I mean,
I think reasons for like motivation for making decisions, I'm okay to be critical about, but maybe not the decisions themselves. Like if you're making your decision because of some xenophobic or racist or hyper-capitalist motives, then yeah, I'm going to be critical of that. But if like, you know, but if you're like, oh, we should be doing this, well, probably, and we should have that conversation. But I can only imagine what the leaders of the world must have felt like when this thing first hit and they got into their little chambers and like, I don't know, what do you think we should do?
yeah. I don't think it's a problem. I think it is a problem.
What's the appropriate response? Zero precedent.
I tend to be generally positive about these things. Not that we couldn't be wiped out in the human race in its entirety by something. That's absolutely possible, which is kind of a bummer. But you know, people, for instance, will say like, "Has live music now dead forever?" I'm thinking, I mean, give the human spirit some credit.
Yeah.
People have ways. People in the worst of circumstances find ways around things, and maybe the ways around things will be, you know, fucking internet concerts or whatever. People will find a way to make music happen. You know, things will change. I sort of have faith in that. I have faith in people, and that they'll, just with the limitations that are around, we'll find ways sort of around that and through it. They're doing it already. We're doing it right now. Exactly. I'd rather be sitting next to you, but in a bar, in a bar,
having
with a drink,
cold beer. Yep.
Yeah.
I know. But you know, coming back to what you were saying about what we were both saying about our dislike of giant festivals and stuff. That's, I mean, I'm gigging. I get gigs.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah,
I play to small groups, but I've always played to small groups. That is no different than ever. And that's the world that I work in. And in that way, it's affected me to a certain extent because everyone sort of went, whoa. And some people are still on that, not sure what to do kind of thing. But it's the big machine that's really getting hit. Like it's the massive concerts and the big events where you pack a lot of people into a room. But I don't know if that's really such a big loss.
Well, yeah,
you know,
I know, and I know lots of people.
I don't think
rely on it as an industry, but
important. Like, sorry, like I don't believe that giant sporting events and festivals are
Yeah.
valuable to culture, really. I mean,
Have you seen, I don't know, maybe it's they have this in Germany, where they have it here when they show, because football has started again here, that's
Yeah.
soccer.
Yes.
For you
We'll
foreign
use
listeners.
we'll use football because that's what most of the world uses.
Yes, indeed. Football matches here. Of course, the entire stadiums are empty, so that's, well, we'll get around it. But if you watch it on TV, they add crowd sounds to it. Did you know that?
I don't watch it, but yeah, I can
No,
imagine.
I don't really
And then
watch it.
they put cardboard cutouts of people in.
Yeah,
the
I've seen that. I've seen that too, but I haven't seen
That's
that here.
goofy.
But I've certainly, so in other words, if there's, if someone kicks the ball down the other end of the field, they're like, it's like, why?
It's like All in the Family, right? Laugh track.
Yeah, is this really necessary?
I think I'm going to
Because otherwise
I'm going to add some laugh track to this conversation.
or worse, on a more practical level, where was it in like Spain or France somewhere? There's some football match where they said the fans can't go to the stadium, so they're blocked from going to the stadium. But you can go to this big square. You can all meet there and watch it on the screens. Is this insane?
Nope. That's, you seem to have missed the point on that one for sure.
Yeah.
But I've always canned audience is awesome. I remember like with Python, we're both big fans of Python.
Yes.
Remember how they would always have they would have the canned applause, but they would cut it. They wouldn't. They just like turn it right. That was such a eureka moment for me when I first heard them do that. I was like, that's hilarious. That is so.
Yes.
That is so the emperor has no clothes. I just love it. Like, yeah.
Yes. Hey, dude, I have to say, we've been talking longer than any other interview. You do realize that?
No,
the other
I
interviews.
didn't.
I just look. It's like, is it 2:00 yet? It's like, yeah, it's 2:50. So you're gonna have to edit
like an hour and a half. No, I will probably just run the whole thing. People, because if people don't want to watch it to the end, they don't watch it.
Yeah, they can just fast forward it.
Yeah, exactly.
They can just,
Exactly.
Hey, they have the right, they have the freedom that they can fast forward if they want to.
I'm not going to take away that from them. No,
because that's what personal liberty is about.
Exactly. And on that note, maybe we should call it, huh?
Okay.
No, dude, thank you so much for talking with me. You're one of the best, and I miss you like
it's nice seeing you.
And, yeah, right. And
I got to get my hair cut. This is insane. I just thought this is the longest.
Shaggy.
It's the longest I've had it since I was in grade 12.
I can imagine. I was going to mention it, but we had much more important things to talk about. But I was like, yeah, that's the shaggiest I've seen Andy for sure. Well, I hope to. I actually have plans to be in the Netherlands in November if everything goes according to plan.
Cool.
So maybe we'll see each other in November.
That would be nice.
If not, then somewhere else. But yes, we definitely
will.
You're one of the good ones, man. And
you too.
That's great to know you. Good to have you as a friend. And thanks.
I miss you, Craig.
I miss you too. Thanks for all the positive input. I'm going to end the recording and then we'll have a sign off without anyone paying attention.